Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Amanda, and here with me is my fabulous co host.
Hello, I'm Megan.
Hey, hey. All right, so we are your messy, imperfect, telling it like it is homeschool advice resource, right? Most of what we see online is this Pinterest perfect homeschooling nonsense, right? We have been at this for a long time, both Megan and I. We are super immersed in the world of homeschooling. And I don't personally know anyone who's actually living that Pinterest perfect life. It is like totally a made for social media show.
It is, and not only is it a made for social media show, but it's not even a harmless one. It can be so damaging. You're sitting there and you're covered in baby spit up, staring down a mountain of dishes, and really quite contemplating if you can count Reese's cereal as a protein source for dinner. And then you're scrolling by somebody who's acting like their homeschool day was all organic snacks and nature journaling. And maybe some of their days are like that, but no one's days are all like that. And it becomes demoralizing when people don't balance it and show the other side as well. So do not expect a shiny highlight reel here. We are pulling back the curtain on what homeschooling actually looks like, anxiety spirals on my end and all.
Yeah. But what really sets us apart? We are unapologetically progressive. We believe that love is love, Black Lives Matter, no human is illegal on stolen land. And honestly, since it's my uterus, it should ultimately be my choice. Yep. So if you have been searching for a homeschool space that is devoid of flat earth science and that hateful exclusionary rhetoric that comes along with so much of that, you found it. We have a huge Facebook group, literally with thousands of like minded homeschoolers. Trust us when we say you are not alone.
Definitely not. So today we're going to be talking about curriculum timing. It's the beginning of April when this episode lands, and it's that time of year when we start to see questions in Facebook groups like, we are nowhere near done with our math book. What do I do? Or on the flip side, we finished our ELA book this week. Now what do I do with the rest of the school year? So that's what we're going to be digging into today. But first, we pride ourselves on keeping it real here, as we said. And one of the ways we do that is with our weekly recap. So what's up with you, Amanda, this week? You want to share the good, the bad? And I know from chatting with you offline that you've had some ugly in your week, unfortunately. So if you want to share it all?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. This week has been really brutal. We were fortunate to be able to go to San Francisco last week. We talked about that on the last podcast, and we had a nice time, but it really kicked my butt. And so I've just been really struggling. And every day I'm like, today I'm just going to stay in bed. I'm going to homeschool from bed. I'm going to catch up. And every day, then I look at my calendar and I have like 4 things that I have to do that all require I put real clothes on and I go deal with real people. And it's like, I'm tired. Yeah, and and that thing, like everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm tired. Like until you have chronic fatigue syndrome and you have like a host of things, you don't know what exhausted, like it's just a whole other level. There was this thing that was talking about like levels of chronic fatigue, and it's like 1 to 10, and 1 is like a normal person being tired, and 10 is like I am not capable of getting out of bed or like cleaning my own body. And that how many people never have to think about that and never have to judge where they are on that scale of things. And so I'm definitely higher than normal. I'm wearing like really comfy clothes today though. That was my like fight against responsibility. I've got like my big old sweater on. If you're watching, you can kind of see it. And I've got really comfy pants. You won't be able to see those because you don't need to see my pants. But yeah, and then like midweek, I had a really bad HOA meeting. We talked about it before. I volunteer on our board, our HOA board where we live. HOAs are that thing, like everyone loves to hate the HOA. And for the most part, most of the things are beyond their control. It's like written in your governing documents, and it's just their job to like enforce the governing documents, because as long as they enforce them, you can't sue them, or you can sue them, but it doesn't actually hurt them. And yeah, so there were like over 20 people there, like yelling at me about all kinds of things that for the most part was just like, well, if you would come and educate yourself, right? Like if you would come and learn, come to the meetings and, like yelling that we're not transparent and we don't talk to people outside of the meetings. And it's like, well, we're not allowed to. Like the meetings are public. Come to the meetings. Like legally, I can't do more, like come to there, come and listen and you'll hear that we check the contracts. You'll hear that we, always go around and get other bids and we try our hardest to be fiscally responsible, but that's not fun, right? Like listening to people explain and educate you on those kind of things isn't nearly as fun as just being righteously indignant about your opinion and your stance. So yeah, I've made it. I kept saying I needed to make it to the weekend, and then this podcast recording got pushed to the weekend, and we have to do our taxes still. So this weekend's looking pretty brutal, but I'm gonna get through it. It'll be fine. And we don't have any travel plans right now for April. So I'm really like April will just be a normal kind of busy with no extra like travel stuff. So yeah, hopefully April I'll recharge. I'll finally catch up from December and January. We'll see. But yeah, how about you all? You are settling in to your new space?
Yeah, we've had a busy week, right? So it's been productive but tiring because we've gotten a lot done. So we got back to Portugal on Monday and we hadn't really fully immersed ourselves in our apartment here yet. We just kind of crash landed here and then went to England for 2 months on the fly, as one does. And so we got back Monday. Tuesday, we had a huge IKEA delivery come with like the last of the furniture that we needed. Wednesday, somebody came to help put that together. Thursday, our sofa got delivered. Today, our television got delivered. So it's just been kind of like having things come and getting things set up and whatnot. So that's been good. We are also working on our taxes. They're like 95% done. We're just trying to mitigate the damage at this point. Like, we're like, this package of Post-its, can I claim this? I think we're screwed, but yeah, I'll be excited when that's just done and off my plate because it's been a pain in the neck. But yeah, it's been good. One of my kids is in Greece. We've talked about that before on an unschooled adventures trip, and I finally heard from him yesterday for the first time in like 10 days. So that was exciting. But yeah, the kids are just kind of doing their thing. Today, they were all over the place like pinballs. One's off at a card shop playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And he's going to catch an Uber to come back when he's done. And then one just got back from having sushi and hanging out at the park with some expat homeschooled teens that live here in Lisbon. And so everybody's just kind of all over the place doing their thing. So it's good. My parents are coming Wednesday, so I'm really excited about that. So yeah, just busy, busy. I mean, we've had some coaching sessions this week for homeschool parents who want to come and chat about curriculum and transcripts and stuff like that. So that's been busy. We got our April unit study out. So that's been busy. Yeah. So it's just all good stuff, just lots of good stuff. So
Yeah.
the taxes can bite my ass. Like that's not good stuff. But what's
And
that
it
I'm
sounds
over.
right. And it doesn't, my husband was like, we've got time. And I'm like, okay, it's the end of March. And if we don't sit down and start them, we won't have time to find the things if we do them and realize that we're missing the things, like it's like,
Right.
oh, we don't have this or we need this, like, please don't put me in a position where we're doing it like 2 days before they're due. Like, that's just like an extra level of stress that is not necessary. Can we please just have a couple of weeks of like leeway in case we need it for X, Y, or Z taxes suck.
Yeah. That's just
How
awful.
much are made?
You send me a bill. Exactly. It's just the worst. It's the worst. So yeah, I hate them. Anyway, so if you're new to the podcast, one thing that you probably will want to know before we jump into our topic today is that I am a super loosey-goosey unschooler, and Amanda is a hardcore curriculum lover, also known as an aggressive academic homeschooler. So oftentimes we come to conversations with different perspectives, and sometimes something I might say might resonate with you more, or what Amanda says might be really click with you. Sometimes you might fall somewhere in the middle, like you take a little of what I do and a little of what she does, and all of that. So I mean, we're going to be talking about school calendars and curriculum and all kinds of stuff, and it's so not my jam. So, but I do have thoughts, obviously, on ways to manage these things. So, but it's more real life practical application, I think, in Amanda's world. So, but yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm pumped to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think so. And, it's that everyone does it differently. And I feel like this is one of those questions that is more significant for people who are homeschooling in their first year or two, right? In those first couple of years, seems to be, you always talk about how math is the last thing that people let go of when they go to unschooling. I feel like the school calendar and getting things done within the school calendar is kind of the last deschooling thing that people let go of when they're like, when they jump into homeschooling. So, I mean, a school calendar usually runs like August to May or September to June, at least in the United States. It varies in other countries, right? Because their summer and winter breaks are different. But so many people think like, okay, well, this is the school year. And for some people, that works. I know in my family, when we tried to do something more along those lines, we struggled because we just wanted a lot more flexibility than the traditional school calendar for a lot of reasons, right? Like, one, we love to travel. And I'm not looking to travel on school breaks because, first off, everything is crowded and crazy and busy, but everything is also exponentially more expensive, right? So if
Mhm.
I can go when everyone else is in school, we have the museums to ourselves, the airport is not insane, hotel rooms are cheaper, like everything is just nicer, right? So we use the flexibility that way. But then I also found, and I know a lot of homeschool parents find this, some don't, and that's totally fine. But in our home, I found that if we take 2 or 3 months off in the summer, it's a real slog to get back into it at the beginning of the typical school year. So we do kind of this modified year-round thing where we do some stuff in the summer, and it's a mix of stuff that's just enjoyable, like not technically curriculum. And there's some curriculum that maybe we're working through because we fell behind on it last year and we want to be able to start kind of a new curriculum or a new something at the kind of the start of the new school year. But it's not this defined like school is done. But also the reality is my kiddo would get bored pretty quickly if there was no like, no, we're not learning this summer. Like you just have to play. And he's like, I mean, he likes playing with the best of them, but he can only do so many hours of Legos a day before he's like, okay, but like, can I learn about this thing or that thing? And that's schooling, right? That's homeschooling.
Mhm.
So I think, figuring out what that looks like and finding that balance in your own family is super important. And it doesn't have to be a traditional calendar school year.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, we've lived in some places that have really harsh climates. And I think that also plays into it too sometimes, where if you want to hunker all winter and really plow through stuff because you'd rather just be in your house and be cozy with your fireplace going, great. When we lived in South Florida, it rains like the entire month of June, it rains. So it's a great time to hang out at home, get some stuff done. In Texas in the summer, it's like being on the freaking sun. It's just awful, right? That is a time when I do not want to step outside my door. So, you can also kind of play around with weather. Like you mentioned travel, but weather is another thing. If you have amazing weather where you live for 4 months out of the year, and you wanna maximize your outdoor time, pack the parts where it's really crappy weather with your heavier commitments and things like that, and buckle down and get stuff done then. I mean, you have the full flexibility to do whatever you want in homeschooling. I mean, you really, really do. When we say that all the time, but to your point, I think it's that deschooling thing of, like, really understanding that you can do whatever you want. Whatever works for your family, you can do. There's I don't wanna say there are no rules because some states have some parameters about reporting and stuff like that, but you can still do what you want with those parameters in mind, right? You can still if you have to have a certain number of days or count hours or something like that, you can still do those days or those hours whenever you want to. There's not really any strict settings that go around those. So you are not tied to a calendar. So if it's this time of year, if it's Aprilish, right, and you're done, your kiddo finishes early, what do we do, right? What happens next? And really, again, there's no right or wrong. I think is your kiddo hungry for more? Is it a program that they absolutely loved? Is it something that they super enjoyed doing and they're like, what happens next? What comes next? I can't wait to get keep going. Get the next book. Keep going, right? There's no reason why you can't. Or maybe to your point, Amanda, like during the summer, you might not be doing the same thing that you're doing during the school year. but you're still learning. So maybe this is a great time to explore interests that kiddo has had, or do a project that has been on your mind. You bought all the supplies 2 months ago and they're still sitting in the bag from the store because you haven't had a chance to get it done, right? This is a great time to do that kind of stuff. I know in December, Amanda's kiddo did unit studies, right? Because it was kind of like it's the holidays, it's tough to stay on a strict schedule. Everybody's looking for a little change up, a little break. Okay, great. We're still learning, but we're doing unit studies. So you can continue with the same thing that you were doing, just by the next level of whatever that curriculum was and keep going, or you can change it up and do something completely different. It is entirely up to you. There again, very few rules about this. Even in states like New York, Pennsylvania, you can still do these things, even in those states, which in the US are the highest regulated states, really. So
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you said, we tend to do unit studies when our schedule is really crazy. So in December, well, in general, right, when we're schooling, we're doing our regular work, we have 4 days of academic stuff during the week, and then one day that's a drop-off class that I don't really expect like our standard home curriculum stuff to get done. But in December, we have almost not a, there's like not a single week that we actually have 4 days to do academic stuff. So why put that stress on us? We know we're not going to get it done, but we can do unit study stuff and the kid has a lot of fun with that. Okay, great. We could do that. We'll probably do some of that this summer as well as we kind of roll into what our summer break looks like. One thing that we often do during summer break is we do a lot of math review. So I'll get one of those workbooks that's kind of getting ready for the next grade or something. And my kiddo is beyond those math skills, but they're still like fundamental foundational math skills that like it's just a quick worksheet a day of like make sure you haven't forgotten how to do these basic things because they are going to come back up in your junior high and high school math. But if you haven't done them in a few years, then you've got to go back and review it. So in the summer, we just kind of review those things and do any like tweaks or brushing up on stuff that we need to do. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be one way or the other. And if you finish early, like Megan said, you can go on or you can do something else. Like math, I think, is an extra challenging one just because math builds on itself. So it can be hard. In our case, my kiddo finished his math curriculum. He was doing Beast Academy. He finished all of Beast Academy the very beginning of March. I'm not really excited about the idea of him finishing Beast Academy in early March and then starting math again in September. I mean, that's a long break to forget because he's supposed to be going into pre-algebra. And like that's pretty I feel like that's setting him up for much more challenge and struggle than he needs. At the same time, I don't really want to put him in pre-algebra in March or April because then that puts him doing hardcore pre-algebra over the summer. And I know he's not going to want to do that either. He's going to want to be able to take a bit of a brain break and, hang out with his friends and his cousins and go to the pool more and do all of those kinds of things. He goes to summer camps and stuff like that. So for us, it was that thing like, well, this is the curriculum that we want to do. But in the meantime, let's just do some Khan Academy math videos, right? It's not the same level. It's not as in depth. It's not as challenging. It doesn't tickle your brain as much, but it's a good, solid basic thing. So go ahead and do some of them, learn some of the basic skills. And then when you're ready and you think you actually want to do it, or in September when I say, okay, now you have to start, then we'll get to the curriculum that we picked that we want to use. And so there are a lot of options out there. And just because you love art of problem solving, or you love Michael Clay Thompson, or you love this one specific curriculum, it doesn't mean that if you finish that early, you have to dive back into that. You can pace it and mix in other things as well. You don't have to. If you're going to be a Megan and you're all like, with the curriculum, like you don't have to pick another curriculum, but you also don't have to stick with the one that you were doing either. It's totally fine to mix things. And you never know, you might find when mixing something else in that like oh, actually, this works better for my kiddo. Something changed in the last couple of years, and I can clearly see that this style or this type works better for my kids. So I think I need to tweak and adjust what my expectations were for the next school year. No problem. That's homeschooling. Again, that flexibility.
Hmm. Yeah. That's the beauty of it, right? Is we can do basically whatever. Right. Basically whatever, like little asterisk. But yes, and if you're ever curious where that whatever starts and stops, come join our Facebook group, schedule a coaching call. We'll gladly help you find that line if you're new and you're trying to figure out just how far can I push this freedom of homeschooling that we will
Yeah.
make sure that you're still doing right by your kids, staying legal with your governing bodies, but enjoying your freedom and flexibility of homeschooling.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there are so many ways to make sure your kiddo is learning and that they are learning tons and tons of things. And it can be my way, it can be Megan's way, it can be anywhere in between and a little on the outsides of both of where we are as well, right? We're not at the absolute far ends of the spectrum for either one of us. Though when you compare the two of us, we're quite opposite.
Yeah, and we never really have this, like, we finished early thing because if my kids are taking a structured class, it's typically outside of me. It's something they've signed up for through a workshop, a college, out school, something like that. And so there's a start date and an end date, and they finish when they finish, and then they're good. So we don't really have this experience very often in our world. But we do like managing our time still. So we're going to be here for 3 weeks before we go out of town again. And so my daughter sat down the other day with a blank piece of paper and a ruler and gridded it out and it did her 3 weeks and was like, okay, here's my project plan for the next 3 weeks. These are some things that I want to accomplish. And she breaks them down like, this is going to take me 2 days to accomplish. This is going to take me 3 days. And she kind of scales it out and buffers in some breaks for herself or some overage just in case something takes longer than she thinks it will. So we do manage our time, but just very, very differently than school year and curriculum and things like that. So it's less applicable to me.
Yeah, well, and that's a great point. If you are teaching the curriculum yourself, then you have you have less control over when exactly it ends or when exactly you finish the curriculum, just because you have sick days and you have things that come up or whatever it is. And so it shifts back and forth. Whereas if you're paying for a class, you're paying an outside provider, right? Like it ends when it ends. The teacher's not like, oh, we had a sick day, so we're just going to tack on some more weeks. It's much more structured. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that you have to figure out where you fall. And it also means, and we've talked about this time and time and time again, kids are asynchronous. They're doing different things at different levels. And the vast majority, not all by any means, but the vast majority of homeschoolers are doing a combination of a curriculum of some sort, a unit study, a parent led something or a child led something, and a class outside that is controlled by someone else's timeline and schedule. And so you're almost always going to find that you're not finishing boom, boom, boom. Everything is not finishing the third week of May or the first week of June. Like it's just not going to work. It can happen. And so, I'm like, I'm sure there's someone listening to this going like, but I can't be that flexible. Like, you can. I know it's hard, but you can let go of some of these ideas of what traditional school looks like and just know that, like, as long as your kid is learning and they're learning the next thing that they want to learn and they're progressing, like, that's the part that you're holding on to, not what page you're on in the book or even what book you're using. Like, you're focusing on whether or not they're progressing in their knowledge and their skills, whatever that might be.
Mhm. Yeah, and we just did an episode about rethinking that clinging to structure concept of like I can't be flexible and understanding that everybody is going to have a different amount of structure in their homeschooling and if it's working for you that's amazing, but being just super intentional with the choices that we make in homeschooling because we don't have to adopt anything that's prefabricated. We get to build it ourselves and we get to customize and tweak and all of that. So, really analyzing what your level of structure is, why it's there, is it serving you, all that good kind of stuff. So, we just did that a few weeks ago. If you're freaking out about Amanda saying things are going to end all on different days, you're going to want to go listen to that.
Yeah. Like, "Oh, no, that's nowhere." Okay, so we are going to talk about if you have the opposite situation, right, where you're nowhere close to being done and summer break is coming and you really want to enjoy it. You and the kids need summer break, right? We've all been there. Like, oh, I cannot wait for this to I need a month off. I need a month off. We're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, we did just want to quickly remind you, did you know that we do coaching? We kind of missed it, but if you're listening to our episodes and you're thinking like, yes, this is amazing. I'm totally in, but how do I apply that in my own home? Because like XYZ or ABC, come, right? Come schedule a coaching session. Let's talk about it. You can book sessions with me or with Megan or with both of us. There's a link in the description. There's a link on our website. It's in Calendly. It's an app, a service that you can use, and it makes it really easy. When you get in there, you'll see that it's broken down. There's options to book like Amanda for curriculum guidance and Megan for transcript building or how to like really make this unschooling thing work. Together, we can help you plan a world schooling adventure or even just help you get started, right? Some of those conversations, those coaching lessons are like the most enjoyable for me because you get someone who's like, I know that I don't want to do it the way public school did, but I don't think I wanna be quite as anal as Amanda, and I don't think that I can be quite as like, "Oh, whatever you wanna do," as Megan. Like, help me figure out how we get this started. Like, how do we and we can all brainstorm together things that are, like, really specific to your family and your child and your unique needs, whether those are learning differences or, I mean, just anything, family structure, dynamics, moving, being relocated, whatever, we can totally help you actually focus on that. So it can be as niche and specific as you want. It can be general. We're just here and we're happy to help. That's really what it is. All right. So with all of that said, let's get back to it. What happens if you are nowhere near done and the school year is coming to an end and you are like burnt out and desperate to be done, even though you're only on week 20 of Michael Clay Thompson's 28-week program plan? I think the first thing that people need to know is schools don't finish. If your kid is in a brick and mortar school, the chances that they actually finish their textbook are pretty slim. If you didn't notice it, or if you have a kiddo who is still in school right now and you're listening to us talk about this, take a minute to pay attention to where they're at in their ELA workbook and their math workbook and where they're going to be at the end of the year. I almost guarantee you that they are not going to get that book finished. And then when they come in this, like in the fall for the next school year, the new teacher is going to try to quickly, like in a week or two, cover and cram all of the things that they were supposed to learn at the end of the year and review everything from the previous year and then start on the new stuff, right? So you're not alone. This isn't like an unusual thing.
Yeah, I mean, my kids went to school. My oldest two went to school for a very short period of time, and at the end of the year, they send all those workbooks home. They're not done. Not even in the slightest are they done, right? And it's fine. I mean, in fact, when we talk about transcripts, I met with somebody a week or so ago to help build her kiddo's transcript. The standard for assigning a credit on a transcript is having completed 80% of a high school level textbook or higher at the 80% mark. You finish 80% of that book, you've got a credit. And so even in traditional education circles, that's what we're talking about. They very, very rarely finish the books. They don't have the time. They're also scattered in the same way that Amanda brought up earlier, like you've had sick days and you've had this and you have that and whatever. They have that in school. They have, oh, an unexpected fire drill. They have, oh, we have to rehearse for the multicultural show. Oh, it's book fair. They're constantly having stuff thrown at them the same way we do at home. So it's really not all that uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, on the flip side, like you started by saying, Amanda, that you're done, you're burnt out, you're fried, and you haven't finished the book. But I think too, there's also just the possibility, like we talked about at the very start of this, you're not stuck to a school schedule. So if you're making slow and steady progress through something, you don't have to stop just because the school year stops. If you're building momentum and your kiddo's gaining some confidence and it's April, May, June, keep going. I mean, you can work on it till November. It doesn't matter. and take breaks where you need little breaks, little breathers, little mental health breaks and whatever. But if you're continuously making progress, keep going. There's no reason why you can't just plug away at it until it's done, if that's your goal.
Absolutely. And we definitely do that in our home, right? So usually with history, my kiddo he's a big history buff and he's always learning history. So with history, I will usually will kind of stop the official stuff that counts as our history curriculum that we turn into our oversight teacher because we're in this California charter or homeschool situation where we have to provide samples and things like that. So we have a curriculum that counts as that. And so a lot of times if we aren't finished with it at the end of the year, which is usually the case because we're on this weird rolling schedule, right? So last year we finished early, we finished in like March. And so we started the next one. But that means that, it's set up for kind of a traditional school year. So of course now like we're just in a wonky position with it, but that's fine because when we get to kind of the end of our traditional school year, we'll stop with the official history textbook that we have. And my kiddo will do unit studies and he'll go to museums and he'll read books and he's going to watch documentaries. He's going to do all kinds of history. I'm not worried about that. And then we'll pick that up at the beginning of the new school year so that we have the samples that we need for our portfolio and our teacher and all of that jazz. On the flip side, we do use Michael Clay Thompson for part of our ELA. It's not our entire ELA curriculum, but that one, he enjoys it. Honestly, I don't really enjoy it, but he really likes it. So we do it and we do, a little bit loosely. We don't do all of the parts and things that they have. But if we aren't done with it at the end of kind of a traditional school calendar time, we're going to just keep kind of working on it. It doesn't take that much time, but we'll work on it probably through the end of June, just so that we get it done, and like it's done. And then when we're ready to start in August or September again, we start with the new one and we do it for the year. And it's that thing again, the flexibility, the curriculums that you enjoy and you want to keep working on, great. The curriculums that you just want to get done so you don't have to come back to it in the fall, great. The ones that you want to do all summer because everyone is enjoying it, also great, right? Like truly,
Noticing a theme here? Yes.
right? Truly what works for you is great. Like again, it's that as long as you're making progress, whatever that progress looks like, you're all good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that tends to roll into more confusion, whether you finished early or you haven't finished and you're trying to figure out what to do. I think there's plenty of people, probably people who are a little bit newer or who maybe have a very rigid traditional education mindset that they're either okay with or trying to break, one or the other. But this need to label children by grade
Yeah.
and this like, okay, well then if we finished the math curriculum, but we didn't finish the ELA curriculum and we're going to be finishing that in the fall, what grade is my child in? So I am like the worst example ever of this because my youngest never went to school and he's never worked on grade level. He's never had anything formal or traditional. And I remember when we were getting ready to move to Texas, I was registering him for summer camp and I had to put his grade going into X grade by X date or something. And then there was this little disclaimer that was like, once you have entered this into the camp system, it cannot be changed. And that was like, whoa, okay. I sat there when I tell you the amount of math that I did trying to figure out what grade this kid would be in. And what hasn't helped either is that we've moved states so many times and the cutoff changes sometimes.
Yeah.
So in Florida, he'd be this grade, but in New York, he'd be that grade because it's a little bit different. So that hasn't helped either. So I literally got to the point where I called my best friend. We were pregnant at the same time. And I was like, what grade is your kid in? She's like, she's in this grade. She's going into that grade. I'm like, thank you. Because I cannot keep track. So for me, on my end, my kids are all whatever their age appropriate grade level is. It doesn't matter what work they're doing. It doesn't matter where they're at. I mean, I have one who's She'll be 16 in a month, actually. And, she has a 2-year college degree. I'm like, it doesn't matter. She's a sophomore, right? It doesn't matter. Socially, it's easier fitting in when you have to fill out forms, when you have to do these things. Everybody understands it. It's easier. So that's the route that I've gone. I know your kid is nowhere near operating on grade level for anything either. What do you do, Amanda? What's the jam in your house?
Well, yeah, I would say that it's basically the same idea, right? Like it's kind of funny because we were just talking in the Facebook group on a thread about this idea that like I don't when I chose to homeschool, I didn't share it widely or publicly because I made the best choice for my family. And it's just like my health choices or any of those other things. Like it's not up for discussion. This is the choice that I made for my family, and my family is on board. And so we're not really sharing it for your opinion. Like your opinion, like not needed, not noted. Thank you. And so I kind of feel that this like what grade they're in, it's the same thing, right? Like and I do agree, especially if you're starting out and you want to use curriculum, it is harder to figure out what you're buying. But at the same time, the more you do it and the more that you work with your kid at home one on one and you see where their strengths are and you see where they need a little bit more support, you're going to be able to look at things and be like, oh, yeah, this curriculum is 3 grade levels ahead, but he's really going to enjoy it and he'll be able to do it. And so that's fine. Or, this curriculum is like right on grade level if he was in public school, but it's actually got a bunch of stuff we've never talked about or we've never covered. So I think it'll be fun, like let's add it in. A- And so it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and say like if you're a curriculum person, you just let it go and don't worry about it because it is hard. It's hard to figure it out, right? But at the end of the day, what you're picking curriculum wise is not based on grade level so much as skill level. And the vast majority of curriculums, especially the secular ones, will have pre-tests online. And I'm not saying you have to make your kid do a ton of pre-tests, but you can look at them yourself for the most part and be like, oh, we haven't covered this. We have covered that. Like, I don't even know what that is. I know for certain I haven't taught them that. And then you can kind of pick which skills you want to use or what level you want to pick up and work on. And then sometimes pretests come in really handy, like you give your kid a pretest and you're like, how did you know that? Like, okay. And then you move on to a different level because they knew something you had no idea they learned from a movie or something they did online, whatever the case may be. So that's a long way of saying that for us, we do pretty much the same thing for like public consumption. What
Mhm.
grade are you in? Fifth grade. Like that would be if he was still in a brick and mortar school. And we do also sign up. We've talked about this before. We sign up for camps a lot of times, and they don't care how academically advanced your kid is for the most part. They just want to know same age peer based on grade. And so, like, okay, fine, here it is. And we'll do what we need to do educationally, the same as Megan has done. When he's ready for college classes, we'll do some online dual enrollment ones first and see how they go. And if they go well, then we'll tackle trying to sort it out with our local community college so that he can attend things, even though they say he can't until he's 17. Like we're just we're gonna work on that. We're gonna sort it out as we get there. But that general, like, what grade is your kid in? Like, I think just make it easy on yourself. And like for public consumption, just keep track of like age, same age peer group. They're in first grade, they're in fifth grade, whatever it is. And then, you yourself in your homeschool life, you need to pay attention to where they're at in different skills. And that might mean that you have a fifth grade this and a ninth grade that. And, you know, a high school, could be a 12th grade, this kind of thing. And what you might find that even though your kid's doing a 12th grade ELA study, they also really want to do a third grade level novel study on some series that they're really into. And you might want to help them find like all of the symbolism that's in Wings of Fire. Or a friend of mine was just telling me about how like Chronicles of Narnia is actually like super religious and Christian based and all of these things that being I'm like, I had no idea. I'm 100% positive my kid read it. I didn't know any of that. Like, that's not going to be probably a high school level class, because Chronicles of Narnia isn't necessarily, it's the thing, you can be all over the place. And as
Yeah.
long as you're learning something and enjoying it, again, that's the goal, right? That's why we homeschool. Like, enjoy learning, enjoy the process of accumulating knowledge, and don't worry about what number they slap on it for grade level.
Well, and I know we've talked about it in the past. I'm all about not making life harder for myself than it needs to be. I've got enough on my plate. I'm not going to look to make life more difficult. There was somebody that I was talking to, she should post a question, not in our Facebook group, another one. And she was saying, like, how do I document summer camp for a 7-year-old? And she happened to mention what state she was in. It was one of the states I've homeschooled in. No one cares what your 7-year-old is doing at summer camp in this particular state. Like, I'm like, you are creating work for yourself that does not need to be done. No one is ever going to ask you this. Summer camp can just be summer camp. It's fine. So, along the same lines, I'm just not up for creating work for myself that doesn't need to happen. And I'm thinking, I know haircuts are always the big thing. Like when I take my boys for a haircut, it's always like, how was school today? That's always the conversation at a haircut. What grade are you in? All that kind of stuff. And you're dealing with people, whether it's at haircuts or wherever else, who have such a boxed in linear view of education that you're going to be like, well, he's doing 12th grade math and he's doing 6th grade this. I mean, they're literally just going to sit there and look at you like a deer in the headlights, like you're an idiot. They don't understand. Now you have to explain it all. Why? Why? You do not need to create this effort for yourself. Be like, he's in 5th grade. School was great. Thank you. And stop making work for yourself that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I have this exact same issue with my pediatrician. I absolutely remember when we started school, and even before, when he was little, 2 and 3, every time we went to the pediatrician, has he started preschool yet? Like, nope, he hasn't. And we're not doing that. Like, well, there are some really great ones. If you would like our list of resources, like, nope, I'm good, but thank you very much. And we have a great pediatrician. I, I love her. We have stuck with her because she's very happy to listen. And, it's that same conversation each time. And I was so happy. We just went to the pediatrician, and she was just straight away like, oh, so, like, what's your favorite thing to study? But there was no, she's got it in her notes that we're homeschooling and that we're sticking with it and that everything is fine. And so there wasn't the like, what school are you at? And that I think she might have said, are you still homeschooling? And kid was like, yep. And then instead of like specifically like, what's your favorite subject? She's like, what's your favorite thing you've been studying or something interesting you've done lately? What kind of sports or extracurricular things are you doing to make sure that he's being active? Like, usually, what's your favorite food? And he's always like, sashimi and Brussels sprouts. And she's like, that's weird, but no wonder you're so low on the weight curve. What? It happens everywhere. And it's, you just, like Megan said, you don't have to make it harder on yourself, even if you love curriculum.
Whether you're loosey-goosey unschooling or curriculum loving, he's in 5th grade. School's great. Thanks for asking. Move on. No one needs to know. It's just too much information opens the door for questions, and then you have to explain yourself and people don't understand it. And then you feel like you're on the defensive, and it's more work than I'm up for. So, I mean, there's a beauty and a freedom that comes with homeschooling. You can do whatever works for your family in those scenarios, but you don't also owe anyone any of that information. So you can finish your curriculum in April, take a break, do unit studies, start the next grade. You can carry it through the summer, continue it into the fall, finish it when you finish it. I mean, none of this matters. None of it matters. What matters is incremental growth, kids who love learning, happy and healthy kids. These are the things that matter. So as long as you're making progress and your kids are growing, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say one last little thing. We talked about it before, but if you're listening to this and you're thinking, but I live in a state or in part of a program and I have to show work samples, you know what? It is so, so easy to go online, especially like education.com, and download a math worksheet or an ELA worksheet or a whatever kind of worksheet that will take your kid 3 or 4 minutes to fill out. You just type in like 5th grade math and download a few of them. Take a half an hour and talk to your kid. Just be like, look, we have to submit these. This is part of it, and just knock them out and then don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about it for months until the next time you need to go in and download some more so that you just got them stored away. And I tell you this, and it's not even really breaking the rules. Our teacher told us to do this. She was like, "Oh, you're going away for 3 months. Like, just make sure that you fill out some worksheets and don't put dates on them until you send them to me." Right? Like, they know. And all they truly care about as well is that your kid is making progress, right? That your
Mhm.
kid is growing and learning and progressing. And so as long as you can show that, it does not have to be a real problem. You just have to be able to show like, yes, they know these things. They're learning. We're moving in the right direction. Done. Easy peasy.
All good. Exactly. Oh, yes. So flexibility is key. If you've listened to all of this and you're still thinking, but we haven't finished the math book, come talk to us. We mentioned at the start of the episode, we host a Facebook group. Unsurprisingly, it's called Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. There's a little tagline that says secular and progressive AF. If you see that, you'll definitely know it's us. Come join us, ask a question. The biggest thing I think that is key is that it's kind. So if you come and you ask a question, you will get a kind response. I answered a question the other day in another group, and it's a really big group. It's I don't you're not in it, I don't think, because it's not your jam, but it's like the Schitt's Creek co-op of homeschooling. It's like the most random concept for a homeschool group. But anyway, somebody put in there like, "Oh, I totally dropped the ball." I guess they're participating in like a book club through their co-op or something. I'm not sure. She was like, "Totally dropped the ball on this. Has anybody read this book? I have a meeting in like an hour and I know nothing about this book." And I was like, it's not going to go very well, but and so I was like, well, I took the book and I went into ChatGPT and I was like, give me like a basic breakdown. And then ChatGPT was like, do you want a character summary too? Like of the main characters? And I was like, sure, why not? So I like grabbed those and I put them in because, we talked in our last episode, I think it was, about operating from a place of panic and a place of struggle. And sometimes you miss solutions or the ability to use certain tools, or maybe you've not tried AI yet or whatever. And so I was like, well, I can do it. It'll take me 2 seconds. I already have the tab open. Here you go. This lady replied to my comment and was like, oh, God, what a waste of resources. And I was like, okay, you don't have to appreciate the use of ChatGPT or anything like that, but you can scroll on by and be kind. Like, you don't have to be rude. I was like, wow, there's nothing like being judged when you're just like taking 5 seconds to try to help somebody when they've specifically asked for help. And somebody else called them out for it. And she goes, I think you'll be fine. She was so rude. And I was like, all right, then. We don't listen. Our group is like our sandbox. And if you're not nice in our sandbox, you don't get to play in our sandbox. We don't put up with that. Everybody is kind. If you ask a question, somebody's going to be like, I'm really sorry you're struggling with this. Here's what I think, or how can I help, or have you considered this, or whatever the case might be. And if they're not, it won't last. So,
No, that's it. I'm also in a lot of groups, not the Schitt's Creek, whatever, because that's not my jam. But yeah, in several of the groups that I'm in the last couple of weeks, they are all trying to like dial it back. And I've seen so many posts of like, okay, we're going to start enforcing this, like you have to be kind because people are not being kind. Like you have to create community. You have to, and they're like putting in links about articles that talk about how to create community and what kindness means. And all these groups are trying so hard to reel in this like just general nastiness. And I don't know how, when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people and you haven't enforced that before, I feel like it's kind of like a runaway train. I don't know how you're going to get it back in the station at this, like, let alone slow it down. We didn't even like from the get go, right? That was the rule. Like, look, we are very different homeschoolers. We are very different people. We come from very different places. We have very different experiences, but we still absolutely support each other. And that, like, it's like, for me, probably the number one rule that we have with our group. I suppose number two, because number one has to be secular and progressive, but number two is this thing. You are expected to show up in kindness and you are 100% expected to enter a conversation respectfully and leave a conversation respectfully. There is no throwing your hands up and being like, well, if you're going to be stupid, fine. Say, okay, if you're going to be stupid, here's the door. You've been saying, you don't get to be that way to people. No one needs that in their life. Like, no one needs that in their life. You can
Yeah.
disagree, you can have differing opinions, and you can do it all respectfully and from a place of kindness. Like, it's not complicated. Actually, it's really complicated.
Yeah, we don't allow vigilante keyboard warriors in our group. So come hang out with us. So yeah, I mean, if you're still trying to wrap your head around what to do with this curriculum and where to finish it and all that kind of stuff, come ask questions. We will support you. We will happily answer your, we'll chime in I mean, I think if you tally up the years of homeschooling in our group, it's like thousands of years of homeschooling experience between everybody who's there. So
Yeah.
you'll get plenty of feedback, and some of it might hit the target and some of it might not. And that's okay. You can pull what works for you. So, but we would love to welcome you. So, one quick thing, if you do send us a request and your Facebook profile is private and we can't snoop your Facebook profile to make sure that you're not a Trump trained person, we'll probably just send you a DM and be like, hey, we have a few questions for you, because we vet very hard to keep our group pure. So,
We do, though I'm gonna say it won't be a DM for the most part because the DMs go in the spam or the trash. So you'll
oh, that's right.
probably
We decline.
yeah, you'll get a decline notice, but there'll be a message that says, like, "Hey, we just can't tell from your profile. Please PM or DM an admin," right? It's not automatic. Like, people will often message me and be like, "I got an automatic decline. I don't understand what's happening." Like, well, you got a message saying, like, "Please message me and have a talk with me." It's not automatic. We spent time. We took the time. We looked. So yeah, it's nothing personal. We're just vetting everyone. And if we can't tell for sure that you are progressive and secular and that you're the right kind of people, we're just going to verify that because no one wants to come into a group where we've promised that we're progressive and secular. And then suddenly you've got people who are like, well, schools are teaching promiscuous nonsense. No, just
No. Yeah. And we get it. I mean, there's so many reasons people lock down their profiles if you're,
yeah,
or don't share opinions publicly if you have a government position or you're military spouse or military yourself. LGBT families are really locking down and going into their turtle shells really hard right now, which we totally understand. So we totally get it, but we just like to check then before everybody comes in. So
yeah, exactly. I just was talking with a doctor, a pediatrician this week who was like, my page is super locked down, but I would really like to be here, like I get it. Like, we get it. All right. So, with all of that said, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's episode. We'd like to wrap up with a mantra. So, today's mantra is whether you're racing to the finish or still stuck in chapter 3, remember homeschooling isn't a sprint, a marathon, or a test. It's a choose your own adventure book, and you're the author.
oh, I love it. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you took something from today's episode. We've got book club on Thursday. We have our Facebook group. Come hang out with us. We're so glad you're here, and have an awesome day. Happy homeschooling.
Yeah. Have a good one.